So this is the fifth of many. We've done 4 on top of Mollagolva, and this is the fifth with Rob again. We've swapped summits across the Severn Valley, and we're now on top of a hill called Erasht. And hi, Rob.
Hi, Myrddyn. I'm glad you said that when you're the Welshman.
And what's interesting about this one, and the reason why we're here, is because it's got a triangulation pillar in the background, which you can see when you view Rob now. It's just on the right. And for the uninitiated, Rob, what is a trig pillar?
It's an Ordnance Survey triangulation pillar. It's a triangulation station which was used in map making. I put in a network of triangles which theodolites were set up to kind of measure angles between them, and this was spread out over the whole of the country to make very accurate maps.
Now, if you'd be good enough and just lead us towards the trig, and I'll sort of follow you, and then I'll ask Rob whether he can just show a few things that are on the trig. This one is slightly damaged just in one corner, but Rob's the expert on triangulation pillars because...
I'm just a bagger, I have to say. There are some very knowledgeable people around. I just happen to like visiting them.
Well, once we've done a little bit of pointing around the trig and just explaining 1 or 2 things that Rob will do for us, we'll go into Rob's trig bagging. So
so this is your standard triangulation pillar design, kind of truncated pyramid. It's actually called a hotine after Major Hotine, who designed the thing. Standard features: most trigs have a flush bracket on the front. This, if you want to get in a little bit, this is the actual benchmark datum point, the top of the triangle here, and that's down at ground level. They're measured very precisely to the 100th of a foot, perhaps not quite so precisely here. They have a unique number, mostly a unique number. There's the occasional duplication. S4755, they go up into 5 figures, so that's a S4755 is a relatively early one. The piece of kit on the top is called the Spider. It's got this one has its plug intact. They're quite often gone. The surveyor would take this out, would put a thing called a theodolite on top, tie it down using these loops, and then very accurate measurements would be taken to all the triangulation stations on the surrounding summits.
And of course, trig pillars don't always necessarily appear on the very highest point, do they?
That's right, and as we were saying on the way over, this is slightly lower than one of the other summits over here, just by about 2 metres?
Yeah, I think on the map, spot heighted 228 at the trig pillar. The little ridge just behind us where we've come from, the tree, 229, and then the very uppermost section of the hill hasn't a spot height, but it's on a map with 5 metre contour, 5 metre contour rings, and it's got a 230 continuous contour as its height. So, and the reason, of course, Rob, that we've now swapped summits, so you've got the Brython Hills where we've just come from in the background behind Rob, and it was to find a trig pillar, wasn't it? Because you've been doing an awful lot of trig bagging over recent years.
Yes. I've been visiting summits for years, therefore going to trigs, but not really registering them at all. I started to get interested in them about the year 2000. Dave Hewitt, who is the editor of the Angry Corrie magazine, among other things, came up with this idea of visiting a trig pillar of every different height available. You know, if you look on the Land Ranger map, you see a number next to it, which is the height of the base above sea level, and just, getting one of each individual height down from -1 up to Ben Nevis is 1344. And as I'm based over in Peterborough, we don't have very many hills, but we do have an awful lot of trig pillars. So, and actually, it's really good in Finland because you've got a -1, you've got a few zeros, you've got a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. We've not got a 7. You have to go the other side of the 100 for that. You've got an 8. So I spent a couple of years doing that. I think the full sequence is kind of 800, 900 in total, and then I thought, well, maybe see if I can see how many trigs I can get.
And how many in all were first established by the Ordnance Survey? Rob, any idea?
Individual pillars, about 6,500, I think. Some of them have been kind of rebuilt on the same spot, often using the same flush bracket, and a lot have disappeared over the years. But in broad terms, there have been kind of 6,500 individual trig locations, if you know what I mean, and maybe 6,100 still left. Some of them are extremely battered. This is fairly battered. It's got a chunk missing, which I have to say it wasn't the case when I last visited it. But some of them you've just got kind of just a base or a pile of rubble, really. But in terms of intact trigs or bits of, you've got about 6,100 left.
Now, of course, 6,100 left. Now, you've visited all the intact ones, I believe, in Wales and England.
Wales, yes. England, I'm missing about half a dozen, which I've kind of got a view of, but not managed to get into because of access issues. I'm hoping to get some of those at least.
And what about the ones remaining in Scotland?
Remaining in Scotland, about 450 left, of which I've been to a couple of hundred, you know, in terms of I've been to the summit but not registered the trig as such, so I'll go back and, you know, look at the number and get the condition, etc. Because
what would the split be now, Rob, between those three countries, Scotland, England and Wales? How many trigs in each?
Wales has about 660, England about 3,300, just less, Scotland a bit over 2,000. It's related to land area, really.
I was fortunate enough to be present on your celebration for your last Welsh trig, which was around Hundred House on Red Hill, wasn't it? And
yes, it was, yeah.
You were presented by some of the people there, a lovely miniature trig pillar, which is quite good.
I thought it was gorgeous, yes. Yeah. Yes, Ted Richards is a bit of a craftsman, yeah.
Was that August 2008?
Sounds right, yeah.
Yeah, and I fully understand that many of these trigs are, to an extent, they're still being discovered, aren't they? Because you know, they may be in people's back gardens, or a farmer may remove one from a field.
Rediscovered, yeah. And they just turn up somewhere completely different sometimes. Yeah, it's quite intriguing.
Any memorable ones, Rob? It's probably a quite a question to ask, considering how many there are, that you sort of visited, and, you know, things that you weren't expecting, either unusual views or the position of the trig in association with what's on the map.
Yeah.
Any that you think about, or?
Well, I suppose the ultimate surprise is turning up and discovering the thing isn't there at all. You know, you ask around and you find it in the farmer's, in the farmyard. That's quite amusing. There are some in kind of just classic locations, like Anchelic is an absolutely superb one, just because of where it is. You know, and some are fairly weird. I mean, I mentioned we've got a -1 trig pillar, i.e. 1 metre below sea level in Cambridgeshire, Little Ouse. That's you stand on the riverbank and you look down on it,
and of course
that's quite unusual.
Of course, they were all, or the ones that I know as trig pillars, they were made from almost an identical mould, I believe. But
yeah,
the more that you encounter around the hills, there are different shaped ones, aren't there?
Yeah, there are cylindrical ones which are called Vanessas. For reasons I won't bore you with. There are some very nice stone-built ones. A lot of the Lake District ones are actually built out of local stone, and those are really very nice.
Have you any plans for which is going to be your last one, presumably up in Scotland somewhere?
I do have one in mind. I say last, but I don't expect to complete them all. There's at least one in the Faslane nuclear sub-base, which I probably aren't going to get into. I've seen it from the outside, so it kind of counts.
That's going to involve a clandestine visit, doesn't it?
But there is one, a Marilyn, whose name's now going to escape me, but in the Borders, which has a pub at the foot of it, which sounds like it could be
That sounds
it's got the car park, so yeah.
That sounds a pretty one to end up with, Rob.
Yeah, the Wiss, that's it. Yeah.
Well, it's been very interesting, because I've learnt a lot about trig pillars that I never realised. And what we're now going to do is do another segment. This is probably a little bit out of sync in its natural order with the ones that we've done today, and go on to Rob's fell-running 24-hour Marilyn attempt. So for the moment, again, Rob, many thanks.